Hey guys, it's Austin and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something new on my channel. I'm going to be reviewing the new Juno Co microfiber velvet sponge. I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but it definitely has fibers that are sticking out. So the sponge right here is supposed to give you a natural, flawless airbrushed finish. So you're supposed to be able to use the sponge wet or dry. On the website it says when it is wet, it is perfect for liquid foundations, concealer, and contouring. And when it is dry, it is perfect for powders, bronzers, blush, and highlighter. Before ordering this sponge, I thought it was really weird that it had fiber. Although, hold on, because let me tell you what sold me on this product. On the website it says, because the outer layer is covered with microscopic fibers, it picks up and locks in your makeup products so that it can be applied exactly where you want it, just like a makeup brush. Wet or dry, your products will blend easily and effortlessly with or without water. Hello. So the products you're using are supposed to disperse into the fibers of the sponge, and when you apply it onto the skin, it'll disperse it evenly and give that airbrushed finish. So that's the whole reason I got interested in this sponge and just wanted to test it out and see if it worked for myself. So the sponge also retails for $6 on the Juno Co website. I'll have that link down below for you guys if y'all are interested in checking it out. Honestly, like $6 for the sponge. If it turns out like bomb as fuck, that'll be a great find. Without further ado, let's just get right on into applying some makeup. So the foundation I'm going to be using today is the CoverGirl Vitalist Healthy Elixir Foundation. I actually picked this up because Jess, aka Jam Beauty 89, raves about this all the time on her channel, so I just wanted to pick it up and try it out. So yeah, let's go ahead and get that on. So I'm going to be using the butt end of the sponge to apply foundation. Oh, okay. Okay, full coverage. So far, I feel like this sponge is definitely not soaking any product up, or at least not as much as a usual beauty sponge would. And I also feel like it's doing a very good job at dispersing the product evenly onto the face. So I usually use about 2 pumps of foundation to cover my entire face. However, with the sponge, I only used 1 pump and I was able to pretty successfully get about a medium coverage on my entire face. But I do think I'm still going to take at least another pump of foundation and see if I can build up the coverage a little bit. I got another pump of foundation, again just going in with the butt end of the sponge. So far, I'm absolutely loving this sponge right now. Alright, now that our foundation is all laid down, I'm just going in with some concealer. Today I'm using the Tarte Shape Tape, and we're going to see how this sponge blends out some concealer. Now I'm going to be going in with that velvet sponge, and I'm going to be using the round part of the sponge, and I'm going to be blending out that concealer. Ooh, yes ma'am. Okay, this sponge did an amazing job at blending out my concealer. With this sponge, I definitely feel like you need to use less product, whether it be foundation or concealer. I did apply a little bit too much concealer, but it had absolutely no trouble blending it out and pulling up the excess onto the sponge. So yeah, foundation, definitely a check. Concealer, definitely a check as well. So now let's move on to some bronzing and some powder with a dry sponge, and let's see how that works out. So I'm just going to be opening up a new sponge since I went ahead and ordered 2 of them so I could definitely try, you know, both wet sides and dry sides of the sponge. Alright, so here we are with a dry sponge. So here is the size comparison. This one on this side is the damp sponge, and this one over here on this side is the dry sponge. Of course, there's a plane, as always. Honestly, living in the city, you would think that things like living next to the Dart Rail Station, for those of you guys that don't know what the Dart Rail Station, it's like kind of like a subway station for Dallas, or even living close to the airport, we get a lot of planes flying overhead. But honestly, after about the first 2 weeks of living here, you really don't notice it. Like, I hear people all the time say, oh, you live right next to the airport, I bet that sucks that you always have to hear like the airplanes, but honestly it's really not that bad. Like, I honestly enjoy the sound of the airplanes. So I don't know if that's weird, this little tangent, but whatever. So now I'm just going in with my Maybelline Fit Me Loose powder. I'm going to set that concealer with a dry sponge. We're going to be testing out the dry one. Get some on there. I usually like to tap it off on my hand, that way you don't get too much on. Now let's just go in and set that concealer. Using the sponge dry and applying powder to set that concealer, it really like set that bitch. It set that concealer. Having these fibers on the sponge definitely helps with dispersing powder products evenly, especially under the eyes and setting your concealer and stuff. I also went ahead and set my whole face with this as well, and honestly it did pretty great. Like, hello. I didn't have to go in with like more product or anything. I just used what I had picked up the first time and applied it. So we're 3 for 3 so far, girl. I'm a little nervous to try this step next. So we're going to go in with bronzer. We're gonna try and see if we can bronze up our face or even contour with this sponge as well. So my favorite bronzer is the Hoola Light Bronzer. This is the one that fits my skin tone best because I'm fucking pale as fuck. And I'm just using the rounded edge of the sponge to pick that product up and to apply it. So let's see how this goes. Just stippling and pouncing that product into place. Drag it up a little bit. Hello. Okay. Girl, sometimes I can't even get this good of a blend with a makeup brush, much less a sponge, so hell yeah. Bitch. Okay. Yes. We are getting somewhere now, okay. And again with bronzer, this dry sponge applied it beautifully. I don't usually use dry sponges at all, but using this dry sponge for bronzer really did an amazing job at blending it out and being even. Although I do feel like it does take you a little bit longer than using a brush with this sponge. However, the application is pretty beautiful. So if you have the extra time, I would definitely think about using the sponge dry to blend out. Next, we're gonna try applying blush with this sponge. I'm just going in with the Flower Beauty blush in the shade Sweet Pea. I'm going to be picking up that blush on the same curved side that we use for bronzer. I'm doing that because I really like it when my blush blends into my bronzer. Just got a little bit on there. I'm gonna actually tap it off on my arm just a little bit, just so we don't get all of that pigment. Just give us that nice rosy effect. I'm gonna go ahead and take it on the other side as well because it's pretty pigmented. Honestly, I feel like I'm just saying the same thing, but throughout all of the powder products that we've used so far with this dry sponge, every single one of them have blended effortlessly, smoothly, blended out evenly. Hello, we're looking good. Last but not least, we need to try out some highlighter, but first I'm going to just set my face. First, I'm just gonna set all these powders in place. I'm just going in with this NYX setting spray. This is the matte finish setting spray. Pretty much just coat my entire face until you're dripping wet. Love that. And I'm actually going in with the damp sponge just to push all those products into place. And last but not least, I'm going to go in with some highlighter on the dry sponge. Today I'm going to be using the Jeffree Star Cosmetics in the shade Ice Cold highlighter today. I'm going to be using that flat edge to apply highlighter today. Right there. I'm just using stippling motions. I'm just patting that into the skin. You don't want to swipe it across your face because I feel like it might lift up the products underneath. So just stippling that in to the skin works just fine. Now that our highlighter is down, I'm just going in with some more setting spray. Even applying the sponge with highlighter, I feel like it definitely did its job and it did a great job at that. I do feel like on some parts I was having to blend out the highlighter with my finger rather than the dry sponge, and mostly I feel like it would be better to blend out highlighters with a damp sponge so it can really press that highlight into the skin. So sometimes I was just having to use my finger just to like blend it out on the top of my nose or at the top of the bridge of the nose. As for highlight, I do feel like it definitely did a great job at blending out highlight. This sponge is fucking bomb. So now that our base is all complete, I'm just going to give a little rundown on the sponge. I definitely feel like the damp sponge for blending out foundation and concealer worked amazingly. It blended out my foundation flawlessly, as well as my concealer just blended right into the skin. Although again, I would note that I would use less product with this sponge. This sponge definitely does an amazing job in not soaking up the product and allowing you to use more product on your face rather than being absorbed by the sponge. And same goes for concealer. I would definitely use less concealer with this sponge than usual, again, because it doesn't soak up as much. And for the dry sponge on all of your powders, this works fucking amazing. I would definitely recommend the sponge just for you to use it on powders, or even just for you to use it on your foundation. I'm absolutely happy that I went ahead and picked up 2 of these sponges. That way I could have one damp and have one dry. And again, they're only $6, so I definitely would highly, highly, highly recommend these sponges. Pick you 2 up. Use one for damp and use one for dry, because bitch, it works amazing. I didn't use any brushes today on my face, and honestly, like, I'm looking pretty good. Like, I would definitely wear this out. By far, this is definitely the best sponge I've ever tried. This is better than a beauty blender. They definitely hold product in the fibers and allow you to blend everything out effortlessly. So yeah, guys, I'll leave the link down below where you can find these sponges. I highly, highly recommend these sponges. I think they're amazing. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time with another new video. Bye, guys.